أذكركم آآ يعني عندي وجع بس الله يعلم بيها، بس الله يعلم بيها هذا الوجع اللي بيّا.
Good morning. Good morning, Luisa. Good morning, Emily.
Good morning, everybody. I hope you all are doing great. I will take that as a yes.
Good morning, Liz. We all love you.
Yay! That's what I'm
Hey,
here for.
good
All
morning,
right.
everyone.
Hey, Janine. All right. Today is lesson 46. Looks like everything's going along just fine. All right. Well, I fixed my countdown timer on my little video thing, and it says that I'm going to start in 6 minutes, but I'm going to start now. All right. Workbook lesson 46. God is the love in which I forgive. In 1 minute here. Or 2. Okay. Now I think I can see all of you. And if you want to watch, you can see me. And workbook lesson 46 is God is the love in which I forgive. God does not forgive because God has never condemned. And there must be condemnation before forgiveness is necessary. Forgiveness is the great need of this world of perception. But that's because this world of perception is a world of illusions. Those who forgive are thus releasing themselves from illusions, while those who withhold forgiveness are binding themselves to illusions. As you condemn yourself, so do you forgive only yourself. Yet, although God does not forgive, God's love is nevertheless the basis of forgiveness. Fear condemns, and love forgives. Forgiveness thus undoes what fear has produced, returning the mind to the awareness of God. For this reason, forgiveness can truly be called salvation. Forgiveness is the means by which illusions disappear. Today's exercises require at least 3 at least 3 full 5-minute practice periods, and as many shorter ones as possible. Begin the longer practice periods by repeating today's idea that God is the love in which I forgive, to yourself, as usual. Close your eyes as you do so, and spend a minute or two searching your mind for those whom you have not forgiven. It doesn't matter how much you've not forgiven them. You've either forgiven them entirely, or really not at all. If you're doing the exercise as well, you should have no difficulty in finding a number of people you haven't forgiven. It's a safe rule that anybody you do not like is a suitable subject. Mention each one by name and say, God is the love in which I forgive you, Billy Blank. The purpose of the first phase of today's practice periods is to put you in a position to forgive yourself. So, after you've applied the idea to all of those who have come to mind, tell yourself, God is the love in which I forgive myself. Then devote the remainder of the practice period to adding related ideas, such as, God is the love with which I love myself. God is the love in which I am blessed. The form of the application may vary considerably, but the central idea that God is the love in which I forgive should not be lost sight of. You might say, for example, I cannot be guilty because I'm a son of God. I have already been forgiven. No fear is possible in a mind beloved of God. There's no need to attack because love has forgiven me. The practice period should end, however, with a repetition of today's idea that God is the love in which I forgive. The shorter practice periods may consist of either a repetition of the idea for today, that God is the love in which I forgive, in the original or in a related form as you prefer. Be sure, however, to make more specific applications if they are needed. More specific applications will be needed at any time during the day when you become aware of any kind of negative reaction to anyone, present or not. In that event, tell him slightly, God is the love in which I forgive you. And that ends the reading for today. I think we've got a pretty good little meditation set up. And today, I want to read the notes first, and then I'm going to do the meditation. And I'd sure love to know if you guys feel like sending me feedback, whether or not it helps to have the notes so that you've got some more explanation going in, or whether it's better just kind of going in blind and then learning a little bit later so that you've got more for the next session that you do. Kind of like it both ways. I haven't decided yet. All right. The notes for lesson 46.
Well, wait, I'm sorry, Lee. I was trying to, I didn't have I wasn't set to be able to turn the microphone on for a second. I think my experience is that I get it slowly as I say a few things maybe, and you say a few things, and different people say a few things, and we kind of get personal, and then we come back to the text with the notes. To me, it helps to have a break between the two. But that's just my opinion, and
Okay,
I'm not saying it because that's the way it should go. That was my thought.
no problem.
I'm perfectly happy to have it go your way today. Let's see how it works.
Anybody else have an opinion?
Yeah, I do think that it's good to have this space, but when anybody has anything to say, to share, so let's give a little bit of a moment for everybody if they want to share something. This seems like really the marathon of the mind. I mean, since like 3 or 2 lessons ago, really has been a challenge for me each day to maintain the thoughts on the
Okay.
lesson during my day. So
Okay,
it's
super
nice
helpful.
to
I'm
hear.
happy doing the meditation, right now too. No big deal. Let me turn the music down a little bit so I'm in control of that part. Can all take a nice deep breath, deep cleansing breath. Breathe all the way in and get as much air in your lungs as you can and hold it for a moment. And let it all out with a whoosh. Start getting our bodies ready to get some higher instruction from deep inside of ourselves. Take a nice deep breath in and hold it for me. And you can breathe out. Papa, can you put your mute on? Thanks. All right. My little user wasn't even a moderator. There we go. Got that set too. All right. One final nice deep cleansing breath. Breathe in and hold it for 1, 2, 3, 4, and breathe out. God is the love in which I forgive. We're going to have a 5-minute practice period right now and take care of the first of 3 for today. The first thing we do is repeat this idea. As I say it, repeat it to yourself and hold it in your mind. God is the love in which I forgive. Now close your eyes. Repeat this to yourself. God is the love in which I forgive. Repeat this to yourself as we meditate on lesson 46. God is the love in which I forgive. Close your eyes and spend a minute searching your mind for those whom you haven't forgiven. This is your opportunity to forgive them, no matter how much you've not forgiven them. We do this wholeheartedly, meaning entirely, or not at all. But the people that come to mind, keep their name in mind for a moment. I'm going to use Billy as an example. God is the love in which I forgive you, Billy. So take a moment and think about the people that you need to forgive. An example might be anybody who you just don't like. God is the love in which I forgive you, whomever. God is the love in which I forgive you. God is the love in which I forgive myself. Everybody has some stuff about them that they haven't forgiven. We each need that forgiveness to rise to our highest purpose. So forgive yourself, because you cannot be guilty because you're a child of God. So God is the love in which I forgive myself. God is the love with which I love myself. I have already been forgiven, because no fear is possible in a mind beloved of God. God is the love in which I forgive. There is no need to attack, because love has forgiven me. Now restate this thought in your mind as we make it to the end. God is the love in which I forgive. I hope you all feel forgiven. Let's take a couple of short, quick breaths, and we'll get our way back into the flow of the notes. All right. Ready for a fantastic Tuesday? It's the Ides of February, February 15th. Here we go. Notes to lesson 46. God is the love in which I forgive. God is the love in which I forgive. Good morning, Mary. Welcome to the show. We're on lesson 46. And I'm reading the notes. This lesson is interesting in that the focus is on the giver, not the receiver of forgiveness. The first thing to realize is that although we perceive ourselves to be sinners that have offended God, God does not have to forgive us for our supposed sins. The reason for this is simple. God does not forgive sins because God has never condemned. Only those who have condemned perceive something to forgive. Since the realm of God is knowledge, which is based on the truth, God knows that within a oneness of all, that there could never be something outside the one self to condemn. God knows that creation is the extension of the one self. Everything remains as God created it, perfect, whole, and complete. God is cause, and God's creation is its effect. Together, they are two sides of one indivisible mind. Although God knows his Son to be a part of God's mind, those who believe in separation have forgotten the truth of their divine birthright. They perceive themselves as limited, separate, vulnerable beings that can attack and be attacked. They perceive themselves to be sinners that have been harmed and have harmed others, as well as God. How could God, being first cause, be harmed by one of his own defects? To sin or harm the invulnerable is impossible in truth. Sin only appears to exist within the delusional mind that perceives separation and Sorry, I had a thought kind of come through my mind and leave so fast. Forgiveness is needed in this world because of our erroneous beliefs. Our erroneous beliefs have made a false world with victims and victimizers. I think I missed something. Perceiving ourselves to be a limited ego body, we also believe that we can attack and be attacked by others. This belief in the vulnerability of the Son of God is what needs correction. We need to be willing to forgive ourselves from our own mind's delusional belief system. Excuse me. Although this exercise starts by asking you to forgive others, ultimately it is only you that needs your own forgiveness. By forgiving, you free your mind from its egoic belief that there are outside forces that can harm you. Since your mind is the source of all of your perceptions, you only condemn or forgive yourself. A thought system based on limitation and fear can only condemn. Only a thought system based on love and truth can forgive. Forgiveness dissolves the illusions of your provisional reality and returns your split mind to the awareness of God. Forgiveness is salvation, since it means that leads. Wait a minute. Forgiveness is salvation, since it is the means that leads to the reawakening of the split-minded to the truth that they alone are the makers of the provisional reality which they perceive. Although God does not forgive, God's love is nevertheless the basis for true forgiveness. It's God's love that keeps us safe from our own denial of our divine inheritance. Hi, Rosa. This truth that you share the one mind of God cannot be lost, only temporarily forgotten. Your ego's belief and fantasies cannot change your holiness. God's love protects you from your ego's fantasies from becoming real. You remain as God created you, perfect, whole, and complete. God's sleeping Son needs only to forgive his belief in lack, limitation, and separation. Forgiveness is the dropping of your fear-based thought system and your acceptance of the thought system for the voice of God. The Holy Spirit is God's loving gift to you. It protects all who perceive themselves to be weak, lonely, or separate from those dreams becoming true. The Holy Spirit's presence within your split mind guarantees your reawakening from your perceived nightmare and your return to the truth of perfect safety. So our question for the day is, why must you ultimately forgive yourself when you perceive that someone else has wronged you? I'd love to know what you think.
Oh my God, I'm sorry, Rosa. I just muted you and you were about to speak, right? I'm sorry. Do
All
you
good.
want to do you want to say something, Rosa? I'm sorry to mute you. Your mic.
Is someone else speaking?
You're in, Rosa. You're the one up. Go ahead.
Could you restate your question, lovely?
The question is, why must you ultimately forgive yourself when you perceive that somebody else has wronged you?
Okay, so let's start from the very beginning. If something disturbs me or hurts me in a relationship, it is usually about me. if I see it or I have created that, because every thought, every action is a reflection of how I'm feeling on the inside. And even though I may not believe that, if I stop and study and ask, what is it about this event? Am I really truly feeling it? And when have I ever felt this before? And we wait and we meditate on it, we would be surprised to know that we felt this way about this particular situation or situation similar the same way before. Nothing is brand new. And forgiveness for me is all about forgiving myself for actually being and accepting that situation, being in that situation, even though I have been given many opportunities to see the truth and refuse to. We make excuses for other people. We make excuses for myself. For myself, oh well, I've been knowing them for 40 some years, and this is the very first time they've ever behaved like this. No, it's not. You just never. It never dawned on you. It's never. We do not become aware till it hurts, and we have to become aware. And some of us never do. But forgiving myself will allow me to forgive others. Allow me to be in touch with the feelings or the emotion that's going on in that situation. I didn't believe it when I first started 14 some years ago, but I see it now. I see it now. I'm in a relationship with this person that's doing something that I really don't do. I'm in conversation with this person all the time about, it's just that I refuse to have that in my life, and you keep on doing it. I don't want it. I stopped, and I don't want to deal with you if you're like that. And they can't understand why. Oh, you can do whatever you want. When something is harmful to others, we have to be aware that we're harming others and we're harming ourselves. Because if I harm you, then that means I'm harming me. Because you are a reflection of me. Therefore, I must forgive myself first for doing it, for being involved in it, for saying it, for thinking it, for whatever we feel that we have intruded upon someone else's spirit or that they're intruding on yours. Everything is a lesson. And we have the decision and the choice to be a part of, to heal from, to forgive, and go on. It just seems so simple to me.
Thank you,
And I
Rosa.
am the first culprit in my life to make waves, so to say. I am the one who created my life through the way I think, through the way I feel, through the friendships I've accepted, through the things that I haven't accepted. Everything reflects what's inside of me. And sometimes you have to actually say, Rosa, that was so unnecessary. So I forgive you. I forgive myself. And the Ho'oponopono prayer is a great way, or even just saying the lesson when stuff happens. Now think about it. I choose to see this differently. Forgiveness is the only way. I can't function in a world of total chaos. I must see the light. The lesson in this. Let me learn quickly. Just little statements will actually change your whole atmosphere around a situation and allow you to be able to go through it. But forgiveness will take you a lot further than hate and anger and stomping and shouting. I can ask God to do something different in this and wait, not try to keep fixing it. Spirit can fix it. We must forgive ourselves before we can forgive anyone else. It sounds so difficult and so big, but it's not. It's the ego that makes it difficult. It's the ego that my way of how I feel. How dare you? And that's one of our favorite, or used to be one of my favorite things. How dare you say that to me? Really, Rosa? Who are you? You know. Now the point is, will you accept it? Will you expound on it? Will you be upset by it, or will you let them have their own perception of who you are and let them see your differences without you having to uh, shout and scream about it? Just be you. Yeah.
Thank you.
And of course, it's about forgiveness and love for real. That's the only two things that it teaches you throughout everything. Anyway,
Thank you,
thank you
Rosa.
for allowing me to share.
No, thank you very much. We love your sharing, so you can feel really um, here, here, here. Sorry. And it's Tom with his mic on, so I don't know if Tom wants to say something, and then Bob.
Oh, yeah. In regards to the Course in Miracles, the Course in Miracles says that there's nothing wrong with playing in the world of fear, or the fear-based world, the idea of separation. The only problem was whenever we forgot to laugh and we took it seriously and uh, made it real, so that we, I guess, basically moved into judgment. The Garden of Eden story of Genesis, Adam and Eve. We were told that we could eat any of the fruits, all the trees. We just shouldn't, and it was a recommendation that we shouldn't eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, which is really a synonym for the slipping into the idea of judging. And judgment was the problem, not uh, information. So this idea that we forgot to laugh is really the problem. The law of perception says condemn, and you are made prisoner; forgiven, you are set free. When we want to condemn somebody else or imprison somebody else, we have to stand guard in that same prison, on the other side of the bars perhaps, but in the same prison, to make sure that the person doesn't escape. uh, and therefore we imprison ourselves. And in reality, that person that we are trying to imprison may very well, since it's our ego that we've made for that other person that we want to imprison, they may very well have not even realized that they were in prison. We're sitting there guarding our belief that we've been harmed, and we're the one that's suffering. So, uh, you know, if we are going to escape from the prison of our own judgments, we need to release everybody. Whether or not those people want to leave or accept that forgiveness, that's up to them. But until you open the doors and let everybody out, you still have to sit there guarding them. So it's important to realize that in all situations, like Rosa said, in all situations, I call that into my awareness. The world is a reflection of me. Uh, the belief that I'm this body, that I could be vulnerable, that I could be hurt, it comes from me. I need to correct that because I've forgotten the truth of who I really am. And I need to forgive myself for allowing myself to slip into that uh, misperception, and realize that that's just a learning lesson, and that's what I'm here for. go there with continue without no blame, shame, or guilt, which is really what keeps us in the prison of our own minds. Thank you.
Well, Bob, do you want to share something?
Um, Actually, I'm just going to say that between Rosa and Tom, who both just gave a drop the mic kind of explanation, I'm just speechless. This is an amazing. That's all I can even say. It's so beautiful.
I agree.
This both of you just gave us great. And I have a huge thing that I came here this morning without going into any detail, saying I don't think there's any way out of this. And I hope that the lesson today can help me. That's my feeling I had coming in. And I think that I'm just going to walk away from the place that I imprisoned everyone else in my mind. Just like Tom said, I why would I just want to sit here and keep them in prison?
As the keeper of the keys, you are free. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I want to share something
I
that
echo that. Adriana, I don't hear you. I don't know if I'm the only one. Forgive me. I just wanted to say, if you could come closer to your mic.
okay. I'm here. Do you hear me well?
Yep.
Okay, great. I want to share something that is sensitive, I guess, but I disregard this part of my life completely, and only in this specific lesson it came into my mind, and it was so powerful that I'm really emotional right now, because I thought I had done a good job on healing this part, but now that the feeling during the meditation went like higher and higher, I know that I need to share this with you. All those things that Tom and Rosa said are powerful and are like understandable and easy to do when it comes to other people, because other people is outside of you. But when you have done something that you really feel like it happened because it had to happen and that's how life goes, but you still feel something deeply inside of you that gives you guilt on yourself, it's really hard to move from fear to love. I have had two losses in my life. I lost a baby when I was like 23 years old. I really, I thought I didn't have a choice, and I have an abortion, and then in my relationship with my ex-husband, after my daughter in 2018, I got pregnant, and I lost that baby as well. But it was like a condition that it's called a partial molar pregnancy that leads to another complication, and the pregnancy never is it's never achieved. 100% of cases ends up in a miscarriage as well. And with that second loss, I really feel relieved of not having it. And I didn't saw how much really guilt probably I felt inside of me. In the mind, I had all figured out. In my mind, it was all good, because I know that in my mind and the knowledge that I have that I'm not guilty of anything. But in my heart, right now with the meditation, I really feel the pain. And I don't know.
You can feel some forgiveness.
Yeah, but it's hard because the first one I made the decision, and
Yeah.
the second one I didn't make it, because of course it was some part of nature that went wrong, something like that. Well, whatever, but it was like this feeling of, the feeling of feeling relief that I didn't have the second one with my ex-husband, because I didn't want to have any more. relationship with him. It's really, I mean, in the heart, it's amazing because you really have you can have things figured out in your head with the knowledge, but I mean, I guess like the most important part of of this process is in the heart, and I had really that in a hidden place. I have been able to talk about this more normally during, I mean, with the years, with when years goes by, and I whatever conversation I brings this subject up, I don't feel like I no longer can't speak about it, but it's just that in the heart I just felt really the pain. I mean, the sorrow, the guilt probably, and that's different. I mean, knowing is different than really experiencing the forgiveness part of it. So you need to make sure that you really are in your heart, is that your heart feels really relieved, in peace, and I mean, I don't know. It's just that in my mind I thought that I knew, but in my heart there's a whole new experience of this. So I wanted to share that because I knew.
Sometimes forgiveness can be like peeling back layers of an onion, and it takes peeling several times in several different points in our lives to be able to kind of scrape it all away. This is definitely a case where you're the only one condemning yourself, and you definitely deserve forgiveness. I know there's no spirits condemning you out there, and so I'd certainly welcome anybody else to say something, but that's my feeling, is that forgiveness is all yours.
Adriana, I would like to say thank you for being so vulnerable on such a delicate topic. I would like to ask you if you're able to forgive yourself now. Do you reckon maybe it was a holy moment that helped you reconcile that guilt of when you made the choice or felt forced into a termination of a pregnancy when you had the natural miscarriage? Do you think it could have been the Holy Spirit awakening you to the fact you can forgive yourself?
Well, that's a nice way to put it, Dr. Amy. Thank you. But it's just that the first one was my decision, and nobody forced me to do anything. It's just that I was like scared of having this in my hands. I mean, this responsibility with someone that didn't wanted to have this kind of life or whatever. So I got scared and I did it. And the second one, I knew that it was God giving me some kind of help because I have already a bad relationship with my husband, and I took it like a blessing, but feeling like glad. Then I realized with the meditation today that I haven't been able to experience my grief on this. Oh, I mean, it's just like as my mind knows that everything is really forgiven, I don't allow myself to feel sad about it. I don't know what it is about sadness that only now that I have the Course in Miracles is when I can see like it's really powerful when you really let yourself be sad about something, and then the feeling of feeling like a killer or something went like in my heart, like this rush of tears or whatever, and I couldn't stop it. And I said, well, I need to share this because I need to just express it in some form. I never thought about this in that kind of way, because I have never held myself in that prison, but that make my entire experience like withhold. I mean, I was holding back the sadness, you know, the when the first baby, when I got the abortion of the first baby, as I wasn't able, I mean, I couldn't tell anybody that I did that, so I did the procedure and I went to work. I mean, afterwards, I went to work and I was really messing up my work, and nobody knew that. I mean, nobody knew what was going on, and I had to explain later, like from. I mean, later in days, I had to explain my boss because I did a huge mistake in my work, and I had to explain to him in order for him to understand what had happened. And he really was really kind with me, but I didn't have the opportunity to really express my sadness because I knew that it was life goes on and you need to go on, and there's no this part of feeling sad or cry or putting yourself on like on the standby just to cry and feel sad, for me was really worthless. My entire life has been like, why what are you going to cry for if you want, if you now will have to move on with your life? So I always like put things in order in my head in order to move on, but I never let my heart to feel it's powerful now because now I understand the the experience of having God being this really love in which I forgive. So I guess it's just moving from the mind to the heart, towards the heart, that it's really powerful because I thought I had this experience of my life already in a good place, and then this meditation came and all my feelings really are there. I never looked at them until now like this.
May I say something?
Of course, Janine. Thank you, and thank you, Dr. Amy and Mary. Mary, I guess he had the microphone on before, but I just want to make sure that she
Oh,
wanted to
I
say.
think Mary would like to speak, yes.
Thank you. I'll be very short. And then thank you, Adriana, for being brave enough to share this. This is not an easy thing to share. There's only two things I wanted to say, one directly to you and one relating to the topic we were talking about earlier. I think one of the biggest things with forgiveness is seeing things as they are and not as we would have them be. What hurts you in this situation is this expectation that just because you had the capacity of becoming pregnant, that you were going to give life to bear the child. But sometimes we actually have sacred contracts with people and things that are supposed to just bring us, like Dr. Amy was saying, into an awareness of ourselves. There is a trick that I usually, it's not a trick, it's a game I play with some of my indecisive clients. When we come to an impasse, I tell them to do a heads or tails on a coin. To pick a coin and say, okay, pick one side and then see what happens. And it's not because I want the coin to decide, but their reaction to the decision of the coin tells them exactly what it is that they wanted. It brings them into an awareness. So I want to tell you that please don't label yourself in any way, especially as a killer, because at the end of the day, you had a sacred contract with these babies for them to come into your awareness and make you aware of where you are and what your life is. So, and then they were supposed to move on. If it was supposed to be any other way, it would have been. If it could have been, it would have been. And if it is not, therefore we accept things as they are and not as we would have them be. That's you, like Tom said, creating a prison and making sure you don't walk out of it because in your mind you have labeled yourself as something you are not. So I think that's one of the hardest things with forgiveness is the ability to see things as they are and not as we would have them be. And remember that your subconscious mind doesn't recognize the difference between you and the other. It takes everything personally. So that's why we need to forgive ourselves first, because there is no difference between me and you in your mind. In your subconscious mind, you is me. So whatever you call the other, you're calling yourself. And for you, other people have been called what you label yourself as. And you have internalized that. So there's a programming in you that says what you have done is something to regret. I want to be careful with my words. Having said that, the body keeps the score. You may have you may have consciously made the decision that you knew what was the right decision, but as you just said, you never allowed for a somatic release. The whole point of us on this planet is that we are embodying spirit, we are embodying energy, we are embodying emotions, which are energy in motion. And by putting your head down and being a good girl and being responsible and saying, you know, the sun rises tomorrow, I just got to keep going, you didn't allow for that somatic release. You didn't allow for your body to also allow for this transformations of your feelings. So your feelings are stuck inside of your body going around a circle. And when something deep enough comes, it will actually create this reaction in you because it is telling you it is ready to leave. So what you actually need is some kind of a somatic release. I don't know if you've heard of rage rituals, or I do neurographic art and I do releases every Thursday, but it's a way to allow your body to express what your mind has been through so that the body and the mind together can release this feeling and allow for it to alchemize into whatever else it's meant to be. Thank you for allowing me to speak, and thank you for your courage and your vulnerability today.
Could I ask a quick question,
Let's
Adriana? Have
let's say,
you
yeah.
freed your
Wait,
child? Or
Dr.
have you
Emi, can
freed
we?
the child you terminated? Is that
Yeah.
child kept in a prison with you, my dear?
No, no. I'm gonna answer your question, but I'm gonna give time to Janine because she wanted to
Thank you.
speak afterwards. But I will answer your question because I did something that you will probably find beautiful.
Thank you, Adriana. Wow. Mary, I couldn't have said it better. I'm kind of, whew, I didn't expect that. I'm sorry, I wasn't even expecting
That's
that.
safe here. It's safe here. No problem,
You
Janine.
don't
It's
ever have
all
to
safe.
apologize for your
Yeah.
tears, please.
Thank you. I just didn't expect it. Same, Adriana. I didn't expect that. Wow. Thank you, Mary. That was healing for me. I'm sure it was healing for you as well. I was just going to say, I had a similar experience when I was young. Uh, I would say that I terminated a pregnancy, and so I understand. Um, and when I look back on that time in my life, I recognize now that I was, operating in the split mind. I was very impetuous in my case, and just kind of charging through life, making fast decisions, operating out of ego, and just I've forgiven my young self when I look back at the decisions I made. And like Maya says, when we know better, we do better. And and I know that now, and I also know that kind of what Mary said so eloquently. I can't say it any better. Is those little souls um, at that time weren't supposed to come through. They weren't supposed to come through me. I know that they came through someone else. I wasn't supposed to be the mom or mother of those souls, and it happened as it was supposed to happen. And like Mary said, if I was supposed to be the mother to those babies, I would have been. I too had a miscarriage, and I suppose I had a little bit of somatic healing needed as well. Just came out there, and that's happened to me on my yoga mat too. I think yoga movement allows that release as well, in different meditations and everything. But that's all I wanted to add. And thank you for your bravery, and it allowed me to be brave, because I don't think I would have said it had you not said it. And we are healing together and growing together. Thank you.
Yeah, this is really like a holy instant because it is really something that I don't share that like openly. I when I share it, like I share it with close people, and I know that every time that I share it, I feel a little bit of release. But just until now, I figured that the feeling in my heart wasn't really in the light. Dr. Amy, what you were asking, thank you for your question and thank you for being patient. And I'm sorry that I have to like always like cut you up a little bit. It's just that really I wanted to hear Janine that I was in the turns. I'm sorry, but thank you very much for doing that question. Yeah, with the first one, I didn't even have the time because I was younger. I didn't have any support, and I was really like just moving forward. I needed to survive in some parts in my life. So I didn't took that like something that I needed to make any kind of action in order for me just to move on with my life. So I just leave it there in my subconscious, and I even never mentioned it until I found this when I was in another city working, and I was already like in another kind of life. I found this woman that she's really special. She interprets. I don't know. Yeah, that's the word. When somebody knows how to interpret dreams, but she's like this. She's just like this. Psychic, if you want to say it like that. And she's so beautiful because she's this old woman that had like the energy of of Mary, the mother of Jesus, something like that. She's super faithful to God, super faithful. And when I met her, the first thing, I didn't even remember the situation because I was really in my mind. I just didn't want to look at that part of my life. And when I first met her, without me saying anything, she said, "You lost a baby, right?" And I just really, it blew my mind because it really took me it was like being hit with a ton of bricks, how you say it. And she said that, and I said, yes. And then she said, you need to know that he wants you to know. Because she said he was going to be a boy, supposedly. And she said, you need to know that he needs you to understand that he is okay and that he is always with you. And she was like, always pointing at my left side. Oh my God, I'm sorry. She was pointing at my left side, and she always said, he is your angel, and he's always with you, and he needs you to know that he is okay, and he's happy, and that you don't need to feel guilty. This was in 2012 when I began spiritual, um, my spiritual exploration. That was one of my big, huge experiences in the spiritual process. And that gave me like this huge like realization that I needed to really enter this kind of processes with myself, because this woman who I never met, who never knew me, out of the blue she brings up the subject and she says clearly, he is there with you, he will always be there with you. And now I have no doubt about it because I have experienced so many other things. Well, that was with the first one, and with the second one that wasn't my doing, but I really felt like this kind of release. I did wanted to just give him like the energy of a mother, and by then I was still breastfeeding Beta, so I took my milk. I took a full how do you say biberon? And I took a full bottle of my milk, And I went into a tree that I had in other house here, and I just give my milk to a tree in order for this other baby feel that I was really, I was really glad that he just went to say. I mean, I did that like kind of a connection process with that little soul or whatever that just came to bring me um, some little experience about something else that well, I did that. Those two things gave me like peace. But the most important part that I guess is worth to share here is that you can have your process in your mind like organized. You can have that, but unless you let yourself feel the pain with compassion of yourself is when you can really heal. Because if you don't let yourself be vulnerable and feel sad and feel the guilt and feel whatever, you are just like holding back your learning process, your experience, your, I don't know, it's amazing. I'm realizing this, and I didn't woke up this morning thinking about this. It just happened with the meditation. So that's that's powerful for me. And thank you very much, Dr. Amy, Janine, Mary, for all those kind words. Really, really, thank you very much. This will be one
Thank
of my
you.
most beautiful replays to do later on. So thank you very much.
God is the love in which I forgive. God is the love in which I forgive.
The wording of this particular lesson really has had me puzzled for a very long time. Uh, what do you mean the God is the love in which I forgive? What does in which mean in this context? And it also applied to the last lesson similarly. But in this case, what I'm hearing is and experiencing is it's kind of like being in a bathtub and having the water and the soap or whatever just cleaning our heart, and the synchronistic reality that we know that because we are crying, because we're tearing up, that washing away of this unbelievable burden that we carried for so long is the somatic relief, the physicality of the experience of the the physical experience of being washed clean, and it's over. It doesn't have to be carried anymore. This morning, I I came with my burden. It's very recent. You all know that I'm trying to do something with Liberia, where there's a lot of gold and diamonds, and Susie, my wife, is really not convinced that anything is going to come of that. There's a number of other people that are not convinced that anything could come of that. What do you think you're doing, Bob? Kind of comments. And that's not your deal, Bob. And I heard what they said. And Susie reminded me this morning of a story that Lee and I know very well because we've discussed it many times. I'm sure one of us has mentioned it here, but And I'm not going to go into the story, but it's called Acres and Diamonds, or A Field of Acres and Diamonds, about a man in Africa. Very short. I'm going to tell a short form of the story. Who leaves Africa looking for diamonds and gold. He leaves and travels the entire world. He gives everything up, gives up his family, gives up his life, his business, his children, everything. And he moves away because he wants to find the acres and diamonds that exist somewhere. And Susie said that to me this morning. And the it was so powerful that I said to myself, I have no idea how to resolve this conflict now, because the story ends that that man dies in a foreign land, and then they find out that the land he once owned was full of acres and diamonds. Here I am in America with a business, and I'm going to Africa supposedly to find the acres and diamonds, which are definitely there, or at least I'm told that. And this conflict was impossible for me to deal with. I don't know. And I hoped that the lesson today would find a way for me to deal with that conflicting story, which my whole family, Lee and Susie, um, have have known about for probably 30 years, because it deals a striking blow. But does it mean that I would have to not do it? Or does it mean that I should do it? Or does it mean, what does it mean? What does it mean? What does it mean? And Adriana gave me the answer, because it's not about anything that's going on in the mind. It's about what's going on in the heart. What am I doing? And am I forgiven? And God can give us that feeling of the heart healing. And the tears are the witness to that. My own tears, seeing Adriana and feeling the story that several others have already shared. I have a sister in law who had an abortion, and it was at least 20 years ago. And she agreed to go on one of those talk shows and say it. She was not guilty in her mind, didn't feel guilty, and stood her ground, and that's the way she looked at things. I don't know how she dealt with it internally. The last thing I want to say is, and this is slightly political, so I hope you will all find it in your hearts to forgive me, but this morning I read some very deep condemnations of a president we had, who I believe used abortion to drive a wedge right down the middle of our country, and still does, because it is so deep. For one thing, men, from what I've just seen this morning, we can't fathom the feeling of what it must be like. I have no idea, but I can see it, and that's a good start. What's it? Is it right? Is it wrong? There's a million answers, but the only important answer is my heart okay? Do I feel forgiven, even though it might have been not the best decision? But who knows what the best decision was? I can't know. God does know, and God forgives me, and I'm in His arms, and I'm being forgiven. and I can go on and help other people forgive themselves of things that really aren't as deeply felt as something like this. Again, I can't imagine it. I'm I'm just amazed by this particular lesson this morning and the amazing things that every single person has said. I'll invite anybody else who would like to add to this
Luisa,
May
discussion.
I
If
ask
I
you a
could,
question?
wait, Dr. Amy, let's moderate because I saw
Yes, of
Luisa, I
course.
saw
Yeah.
Tom, I saw you, so let's put a little bit of order. I guess it was Tom first. Let's try to keep it a little bit shorter because I want to hear everybody. It's just that I will have to leave like in 20 minutes probably. So Tom, then Luisa, and then Dr. Amy. Thank you very much, all of you, for your patience.
thank you. I just wanted to say, in regards to our past, uh, you know, we need to realize we don't understand the big picture. Mary said, uh, there's agreements that we enter into this life with other partners, with other players, and we don't know how they all fit in on the big picture. You know, in the example that we talked about earlier today, uh, there was an agreement, and that, we'll call it soul, is on a different adventure, and it wasn't the right time in the agreement that she would, or that person or soul would, uh, incarnate as someone's daughter or son. And that's on the big picture. That soul is off on their own adventure, probably doing something else, and who knows, may actually be your current daughter. You know, we don't really know, and it doesn't really matter. We all have to trust in the big picture. But the important thing for us to realize is that we're the keeper of our own karmic keys, and that if I was in that person's situation with their beliefs, with their experiences, I would have done exactly what uh, you did, or whoever it might be, did in that moment. And that's the only thing that I could have done, because that was acting in the most loving way that I could do to handle my level of fear at that moment. So I would have done exactly what, you know, you would have done 50 years ago or 20 years ago or 5 lifetimes ago, if I would have been in your position. Because we're here as learners, though, we need to realize that these experiences are given for us to learn lessons and to have experiences and to learn and grow. And just because I had to make that decision 20 years ago, 40 years ago, or whatever it might be, 5 lifetimes ago, because of that new learning lesson and that experience, I'm now able to make different choices, and I'm always moving towards that ultimate reawakening to the truth of what I really am, which is love in form. So all those experiences are precious to us. And one of the things that Mary said, and I have to agree, if we want to discreate about a belief about ourselves, and the reason we had an experience, whatever experiences come, is because we have a belief that either we need that experience to grow and learn, might be a core belief, I'm not lovable, whatever it might be, it doesn't really matter. But that belief, we cannot discreate that belief until we're willing to experience it to its fullest, which means to feel it fully. And whenever we feel it fully, we start learning all the various lessons that it had for us to, for us to provide. And then we can forgive ourselves, uh, because we've now absorbed all the lessons that it was designed to teach. And until we can grant ourselves permission to leave the prison that we've created for ourselves, uh, we can't go free. So, whatever happened in the past, whatever I did in the past was perfectly designed for what I needed to reawaken to in the present or in the future. So it's always the perfect experience that I needed at that time. Doesn't necessarily mean that I would want to uh, redo it in the present. Why? Because now I've grown and learned, but you never did anything wrong. That was exactly what you needed. And everybody, everybody would have done the same thing if they would have had your beliefs, your experiences, your decisions that you had, whatever assumptions. So there's no guilt involved. So God knows that you never committed sin. All that you did is you forgot to laugh. You forgot to remember who you really are, that you're here to grow and learn. And mis, you've blamed and shamed yourself, and you refuse to forgive yourself. So we're the keeper of our own karma keys, and until we can forgive ourselves, we will not appreciate that learning lesson. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you very much. Luisa, your turn.
Yeah, thank you. So, um, yeah, I don't think I have more words to add to everything what's been said today, but I would like to share an exercise with all of you, and I want to really invite all of you to do the exercise with me. So even Marianne and Jordan and Michelle, the people who is down, Trisha, Naomi, Marianne, welcome to Clubhouse. I see that you are new. So I want to invite you to do an exercise with me, and then I will say what is that about. So I want you to, if you are pregnant, please don't do the exercise. But if you are not, and you don't have any like asthma issue, just hold your breath. So inhale. Let's all of us do this. It's very short. Just inhale and hold your breath as long as you can until it really gets annoying, even painful, that you cannot really breathe anymore. And only then you're going to breathe out. So just inhale and hold it as much as you can. And you start to become blue. Then and only then you can exhale. And when you exhale, you stay without inhaling as long as you can. So let's do this. Take your time. And maybe for some people it's easier than for others, but just do it 2 times, 2 or 3 times, as long as you can, holding your breath until you cannot resist anymore. So by now I think you are all more or less, you already had the experience, and the only thing I want to share with you is that is what happened when we hold forgiveness for us. And also connecting the conversation of yesterday, that is what happened when we hold money to us and when we don't receive, when we don't want to receive money, because it's about money. You can do it for money, you can do it for forgiveness, you can do it for love. It's all energy, and it's always in constant flow. And when you are holding your breath, you are holding the natural flow of life. And when you are holding your money, you're holding the natural flow of money. But when you are holding your forgiveness, you're also holding the natural flow of life. That's all what I wanted to share with you. Thank you.
Oh my God, Luisa, that
Let it flow.
really hit me. Oh my God, that was beautiful. Thank you very much. I could totally, oh my God, thank you. That is a powerful tool to have. Thank you very much.
Could I pose a question? I'm not making a
Yeah,
big
it's your
share.
turn. It's your turn. It's your turn. Go.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your grace and for running the room with such equity. Thank you. Um, I would like to just generally pose a question, make a statement, and then a question, please. Maybe two statements and a question. Um, one of the statements is the story that Bob and Lovely and their family has known over 3 decades. Well, it's older than dirt, and I know it too. And it's a fine, fine metaphor. Or perhaps there are diamonds right beneath your own feet in your own backyard. So, should you be that man that leaves your Eden and go search for it elsewhere, then I would follow with a question and ask in a Socratic method. I'll try to pose it very succinctly. Um, why are you doing it? Will I be breathing? Why does it matter? What is the profit for yourself and humanity at large? And what are the consequences or losses of that choice? You know who I'm speaking to, and those four questions are given to us by a Prime Minister from England who posed those questions, and perhaps you could pose them to yourself. You might find greater resolution in why and or if you might go. And I thank you for allowing me to share this space.
Well, that's what I needed to hear. Thank you, Dr. Amy.
I know it, sweetie.
Well, I want to thank everyone for listening so patiently to this part of my story because it really feels different now. I mean, thank you very much, all of you. I really appreciate everything that we have been going through this year. It's amazing, and I'm more than grateful. I mean, I never, I never thought that I could be this like um, open with this part of my life, and it really frees my. I mean, it feels like freedom right now. So thank you very much, every one of you. And I had to just leave the moderation to Lee and Bob because I have to start to get ready my daughter that she's coming back to school. Um, she's no longer in online mode, thank God. So
Oh,
I
boy.
have to get ready. So I'm not saying goodbye. I'm just not gonna be able to moderate anymore
No
right now.
problem.
Thank you, everybody. God bless your souls, your hearts, your minds. You are helping me to figure my life out. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Adriana.
Stanley, I'm watching you. I haven't seen you in a long time. I'm so happy to have you here this morning. You inspired me many times in the past with some of the things you've said. I was wondering if there was anything that you might want to add to the story today.
Hi there, Bob. Good to see you. Hi, Lee. Hi, everybody. Stanley here from South
Yes.
Africa. Um, my journey with Course in Miracles began 6 or 7 years ago during a very deep state of depression after second my second marriage did not work out, and an angel in the form of a lady who was one of my clients came along and took one look at me, and as an enlightened being that she was, she recognized within me something that was happening at the level of ego, and invited me into Course in Miracles. And I come from an analytical background originally, as in the finance field, and it's only in the last 10 years that I've been involved in property development. Um, and I started on the chapters and the worksheets in the Course in Miracles, and I wanted to analyze it like I wanted to analyze a balance sheet or a cash flow statement, and I wanted to rationalize it from the perspective of my world, my experience of the world, which is very much in the mind, very influenced by Western education, Western mindset, and through the Course in Miracles, I sat for over 2 years, maybe 3 years. I sat trying to analyze what did it mean that God is in everything, and especially when one of the exercises is look in the mirror and see God, look into another's eyes and see God, look at the tree, see God, look at the sky, look at the sun, see God. And of course, my mind didn't want to accept that. It could not rationalize it because it was a concept of, like in an income statement or a balance sheet or a trial balance. For it to work, there has to be a left and there has to be a right, and they have to be in balance. And during that period, I could not get it, but I somehow, something within me, and probably every 2 weeks we met and we sat. I was the only man in the room, except for one brief period, and I sat with a group of women once every 2 weeks, and we just shared our stories and shared a bit about our history, a lot like Adriana shared today. And the realization started dawning on me that I'd been brought up in an Orthodox tradition, a Calvinistic Orthodox upbringing, where God was an external concept, even a masculine external concept. So from that perspective, I'd always viewed God as something without, something external that we connect to. And so I could not see God in everything because I expected God to be in heaven. I expected to be God to be there. And I could not understand how you communicate with a being that lives in a different place where you've got no way of communicating with the tongue, with our five senses. And I was with a black gentleman one day, and we spoke about Nelson Mandela, and we were having a chat. Now, I grew up in South Africa, which was apartheid or segregation based on color was legislated. So in speaking to this gentleman, all my life I've been aware that legislatively we were told that we were separated, we were different. And I was looking in his eyes, and for the first time in my life, I saw something in this man's eyes. And I saw beyond the eyes, I saw into the spirit of the being, and I connected with this man at a very, very different level. And from that day on, I was unable to see color in people. And so it progressed to me meeting women and engaging with women and no longer being conscious of the gender of the woman when I connected in a deep, meaningful discussion. And so it extended to nature, to animals, to trees, and to things around me. And that's faith. Faith is the manifestation of things hoped for and the evidence of the things unseen. And Course in Miracles is like that. It's cannot be conceptualized. But if you just embrace gently the idea of the concept that God is everything and therefore doesn't exist as this separate entity. And so I recognize the fact that my view of people of different culture and even gender differences only existed in one dimension. At another dimension, everything is the same. Everything is one spirit, one light of love. And then I started thinking about fear. And in my book, I wrote about love and fear. And I got to the notion of looking at our world, our universe, and I realized that there is no such thing as fear. There is only the absence of love. And then I understood the nature of God in the sense that I was expecting that God recognizes fear, or that God recognizes the ego, or that God recognizes all the things that make us not feel good. But I then realized that God, by virtue of God being pure love, how can pure love recognize anything other than what it is, which is pure love? Pure love cannot recognize opposites of what it is. It's only us in the world of duality that can recognize love or hate, good or bad, and even love itself in this three-dimensional plane is different for anybody, for everybody. It's a different thing. Love doesn't always result in good, not in the three-dimensional plane, but the agape love, the higher love, the creative love, that love which is us, which is the energy which gets us up in the morning, happens. And I sunk out of the mind, and I went out of the monkey mind, out of the chatter of the mind, into that state of peace, which hopefully all of us have at some period in time just experienced. And then I also noticed that things like forgiveness and and so on are merely construct of the mind which hold us prisoner. They hold us locked up. And of course, our president Nelson Mandela locked up in prison for 27 years and lived outside of the walls of not only the physical prison on Robben Island, but lived outside the mental constructs of the prison and walked out with a message of forgiveness. And when he walked out of prison, we were all watching national television. In his gait, I saw a free man. He embodied the spirit of forgiveness, which in essence is the spirit of love, the spirit of agape love. And so I also realized the power that resides within the concept of forgiveness, or not even in forgiveness itself, just acknowledging the love. And that love itself doesn't recognize anything else but love. So then I thought to myself, from a more rational perspective, what is the purpose? It's a waste of energy to spend on self-analysis or critical self-analysis. And so on went my journey to realizing in the moment of what true love is, what the essential nature of love is, and that there is no opposite. And so thus, what Lee read out earlier in that thing is forgiveness or love. God is the love in which forgiveness manifests. It means effectively that our ego is actually really in the best sense of the word supposed to protect us. But what does the ego give us? It gives us short-term solutions. It makes us not forgive others to get a short-term I'm okay, you're not okay. It's a short-term solution. But any short-term solution which requires no energy, of course, has no longevity. It has no sustainability because, as the Bible says, judge not, for so you shall be judged. What that means is when you judge others, you're actually judging yourself because you're all one in any event. So in judging and in not forgiving, who is the one that's not being judged and not being forgiven? It's you, because you are part of everything. So you're like looking in a mirror and not forgiving what's in the mirror, which is actually a pointless exercise of wasting energy and also not aligning with our purpose, because each of us here have a unique purpose in the short period of time that we manifest as energy, the energy of God, the energy of creation, which has a purpose. And do we need to understand that purpose? Not really. But when the purpose does manifest and things like serendipity happen and synchronicity and coincidences occur, and we see it repeatedly in that state of peace, even in your analogy, Bob, or Adriana's beautiful story, tragic and beautiful at the same time. The knowing of what to do is much easier, because the question you have to ask yourself once you've come into that place of love, does this align with my purpose? Does this fit my unique purpose in this world? And then it's much easier to make decisions based on that. And the subconscious mind, from a neuroplastic point of view, gets reinvented so that it only holds what's necessary for us to automatically go through the world and perform normal functions as opposed to abnormal functions, and then engage the frontal cortex, which is the creative part of our brain that God gave us to not judge, to discern, yes, but ultimately just to create and to be with others and to see the God in others, look in another's eyes, see beyond the features, the color, the gender, look into the soul of the person. And there resides the liberation and the answers and the synchronistic events that allow us to become a tribe of people with a common purpose. And there, from there springs abundance. And just before I hand the mic back, I believe it all begins with surrender, because I had to surrender in a state of depression with no more worldly answers. I'd run out of mind power. My mind no longer had the capacity to solve the dilemmas that I was in any longer. And I surrendered, but I didn't surrender to ego. I surrendered to love. I surrendered to God. I acknowledged that that is the only force that matters. And so the ego found its rightful place in my life of playing a servant role to me as opposed to it being the master of me. Love is the master of me. And when I get out of alignment with that, I remember fondly back to the days of going through Course in Miracles in the beginning. I don't remember the depression, but I remember the breakthroughs. I only remember the part of my story in which God entered my life and made significant changes. Hope that helps. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Stanley. Always good to see you and hear your shares.
Thanks, Dan.
Sure, I'm glad I asked you to say a few words, Stanley. That was I have heard a little bits and pieces of your story, but your story here was a fitting and perfect completion of our wonderful lesson this morning, and perhaps one of the biggest turning points that anyone can experience. I've often heard you say that Course in Miracles saved your life, and now it becomes more and more clear to me, and I am complete. Back to you, Lee.
God is the mind with which I think. Let's take this thought with us today. We had one practice session this morning. If you would have another one around
But
this
that is the
afternoon.
lesson from yesterday's, right?
Oh, gosh, you're right. Thank you. Let the book get in front of the other book. God is the love in which I forgive myself for reading yesterday's lesson. Today, let's take
No, that is not
today.
accurate because it is, but it's just, it was yesterday's lesson.
Today, God is the love in which I forgive. And as you condemn only yourself, so do you forgive only yourself. So take today's lessons with you. Set your reminders for yourself. Come back to us tomorrow. We'll be here at 6:30 to read lesson 47. Today, take God is the love in which you forgive with you. And have a wonderful day, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, lovely.
Thank you, Lee.
Thank you,
Really good.
Bob. Thank
Great
you,
day.
Lee. Thank you,
Namaste.
everybody.
Bye, everyone. Been one of the greatest meetings. I say that more and more after each meeting. That's pretty terrific. Hey, George. Bye to everybody. What a beautiful day today.
All right. Afnan, George, it's good to see you. Afnan, I hope you have a good day. Louisa, have a wonderful day. Marianne, Michelle, Nabi, Milad, Michael, how are you, buddy? Frankie, Charlotte, I hope you guys have a great day too. See you tomorrow.
Thank you, everybody. I love you. Bye bye. See you tomorrow.